Hello, I hope you made it through Module 5 okay. We're ready for Module 6 to begin. Module 6 is all about advanced report techniques. So now, you created some reports in Module 4 that had employed a lot of wizards, but now, and they're using the layout view, but now you're going to use the design view, which is going to give you a lot of latitude to add some nice features, but it also can give you a lot of latitude to mess up. But you're going to learn the skills. You probably will corrupt a few forms and start over. A few reports and start over, but that's okay. That's how we learn, and it's perfectly fine. I've done it zillions of times. I don't even want to say how many. But it's perfectly part of the learning process, but you'll get a lot out of this, as will you in Module 7, because then it goes through advanced form techniques. So the same kinds of forms that you just created in Module 5 using the layout view, you'll start doing in the design view. As I said earlier, it's my favorite view because it gives me plenty of freedom to choose the objects that I want and make the forms or reports look the way I really want them to look. Of course, you have data files here I provided, and they follow the same routine. You download them and then into a proper folder and then unzip them. You'll also find some videos that I want you to review before you begin doing any work after you've read the chapter. And they're ones that sometimes give students a little bit of a problem. And so I have walked through completing the detailed report and sub-report, and then the detailed report with calculations. I want you to know how to do that. You will be replicating those skills throughout the module. So you'll be managing again Pratt last. It'll be due March 16th, and then the following week the other 3 will be due, and you'll still be using the same labs 1, 2, and 3 as you did in modules 5 and 6. So we'll be working with them. I think this is the last chapter we use them, and then we'll be switching to 3 more. We may use them for 1 more module. I don't remember offhand now, but we'll get to that when we discuss Module 7. Of course, the discussion forum will be due that same date on the 23rd, and then the test that following Sunday. We're not going to change that pattern. But I did want to bring to your attention that you want to watch these videos before you begin doing any work. So let's take a look at what's in this. Well, let me just tell you first some of the things you'll be doing. So you'll be you'll be creating some new tables and some queries. You should be all experts now, or semi-experts on doing the queries. You'll be walked through them as a reminder, but they should come back to you pretty easily. You'll be creating reports in design view instead of layout view, adding some bills, some text boxes, and some different types of controls. You'll be grouping and ungrouping some objects and controls so you can make changes to many controls at one time. You'll be adding and changing a sub-report, very similar to the sub-form, except that you'll be doing and the sub-reports you did in Module 4, but you'll be doing everything in design view. You'll be adding titles and making those snazzy, page numbers, dates, and publishing reports. So you won't have to print anything, but you'll have to publish publish them so I can see them. Just follow the directions, but there won't be anything to print since this is an online class. You're also going to include a conditional value in this report, just like you've done conditional formatting before, just like we have in a couple of previous modules. So when you finish this, you're going to create something called the Account Manager Master List, and it's going to be grouped by the account manager and then sorted or organized by each account. And you're going to create a discount report, and it's going to show it's going to be sorted and grouped and sorted the same way, but those are basically the 2 things you'll be creating. You're going to create some additional tables, and we'll take a look at the relationships, because the relationships will be important. You'll make sure you want to follow these steps exactly. That being said, you will replicate this for all 4 databases. Just like in the previous module, by the time you get to module 6, by the time you get to the last reinforcement, you'll find that you're doing the same exact steps over and over again. Alright, so let's just take a look at what's in module, what it looks like, what they look like. Let me go and find module 6. Let me just open it up. I'll open another window. Alright, module 6. So you can see there's some data files here. There's some data files. You're going to import data. They're going to walk you through that. But you will replicate that for each assignment as you go through. So let's take a look at Pratt Lass Associates. This is taking a long time to, you see my computer's going nuts. It's taking a long time to upload, and we need to enable the content as we have been. You will be creating a couple of queries in this. I'm not going to close this. I'm not going to reduce the size of this. You'll be creating a couple of queries. This one called Account Managers and Accounts. And you'll also be creating workshop offerings and workshops. This will make sense to you as you go through the process. And let's see, you will not be creating any forms, so I'm going to close this forms box. I'm trying to reduce the size of some of these things so we can see everything. Alright, so now you can see you're adding 2 new tables. You're going to import and create these tables following the directions. You're going to set them up first. You'll see some description about that beginning on page AC 292. Follow the directions. Make sure you read through the chapter as you have been. Through the module as you have been before you begin any work. And make sure you listen to those videos first. But let's take a look while we're in here. Look at the relationships. So you still have your account manager and account tables that you've had all along. Trying to expand this, but we've added some this workshop offerings, and we've established some relationships. This is one-to-many relationship with between the account and the workshop offering, and then we have a one-to-many from the workshop to the workshop offerings using the workshop code. This is the only case where you'll find multiple primary keys in a table, and there's a lot of discussion about that, but this is the first time we've introduced that concept. Just remember that you always make the connection by dragging from the table that has one primary key to the table that has several primary keys or more than one primary key. Okay, so I wanted to do that. I'm going to change. Okay, I saved that change because I wanted to go back and look at that. Let's just go back and make sure it changed. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that this stayed expanded so I could read everything. Okay, so let's take a look at the account manager master list. As I said, it's going to have a sub report as well. It's going to be called accounts by account manager. But let's just open it up. And it doesn't have any background like we did in the forms, but there is a title. It's a page header, and it has the date. It's a live date, so I opened it today, and if I open it tomorrow, it'll say 12/21. Then we've got the labels, and we've got the controls. These are labels. We've made them italics in this case, and the controls, they're bolded. And here's a sub. This is a sub report, and it is called accounts by account manager. Well, actually, this is the workshop offerings by account. Workshop offerings by account. You're going to actually create a calculation in this that calculates the hours remaining Actually, I think that's one of the queries you're going to create, and this is going to be routed to that query. So when you create the query and create this form, it'll tell you, you'll go through a wizard for part of it, and it'll have you select the query that you're going to use to support this. And these are sorted by the account manager. I mean, they're grouped by the account manager, 31, and then they're in order by the account. So by the account number. So the first one up here was AC001, and this one is KC156, and the next one will be something until we get to the end of that one, and then we get to the next account, and then they'll be the same kind of thing. You're going to also create a total amount field, and it's going to have you add these two fields together, and you'll actually do that in the report when you create the report. And let me show you what it looks like in design view. It's kind of scary looking for the first time, but so that's what it looks like. There's your title. Here's your header that goes on every page. See, it says page header. Here's the account header. Let me show you what happens. Let's say I want to make this account manager header deeper. If I drag this bar down, let me undo that first. Let's go back and look at it in regular view. All right, so we're going to make this a little bit deeper. I just want to show you what happens in the design view. So I'm going to change this to design view, and I'm going to make this section a little deeper. So I'm going to drag this down a little bit, and then see what happens. It just puts some gap here, a space here, before you actually get to the account. I don't happen to like mine like that, and I follow the directions pretty closely, only because I want to make sure that when I do that, when I step through the entire process, that when you guys step through it, I want to make sure I understand what it is you're going to be experiencing. You will group these. You see they're already grouped, so when you make a change to one, you make a change to all. So you don't want to do that for the services needed, because if you change the size of it, it's going to change all of them to that same size. And down here, this is the field where you put in a calculation. Like all other calculations, it begins with the equal sign, and then the fields are always input in square brackets. And then this is the sub report right here. It is the workshop offerings and workshops report, and then there's nothing in the page footer and nothing in the report footer. That's going to change in the, we'll have something different in the discount report. And that's it. Okay, and let's look at the sub report. And so that's all there is to it. It's a sub report. And if you look at it in design view, you're going to be taking it directly from the query, so you won't have to do this. It'll come directly from the query. We can take a look at the query. Let's look at how it's built. This is really simple. This is the where you actually zoom in and build an expression so you can see it. This is where you're gonna, this indicates what the name of the field is going to be, and this is the calculation: total hours minus workshop offerings. So it's going to create this output. If we look at the view, it's called hours remaining. And anyway, you'll walk right through the directions, and as I said, every supporting reinforcement database will work exactly the same way. So let's take a look at the discount report now. And it's organized by manager number, and then grouped by manager number, and then sorted by account number. and you'll be creating a discount calculation, and you'll be doing that in design view. This will also have a grand total. So let's take a look at this in design view. So this looks very similar in design view. You see the grid. I didn't talk about the grid paper in the back, but it's very helpful because it helps with aligning things and trying to get things centered. You see again, we've expanded the title so that there's increased spacing between the characters. All of the labels are up here while the controls are down here. The labels you can see through, so you can see the background behind them. The controls that actually contain the data you cannot see through. Okay? And here is the first time you use an if statement in Access. And in this particular one, I'm going to open up the property sheet so we can take a look at it. In this particular one, let's see if I can slide this over so we can see it. You're going to enter the if statement. It says, if the amount paid is greater than $20,000, let me just open it up right here. If the amount paid is greater than $20,000, then multiply the current due times 0.04. That gives a 96%. That makes what's due 96%. If the amount paid is not over $20,000, then you only gonna make the amount due. It's gonna be 98% of what's due. So they're getting a 4% discount here and a 2% discount here. Okay. Down here you're going to be using a sum field, and it's in the account manager footer. When you create when you group, it's going to create an account manager header and a footer. And so in this footer you're going to create this label, so you can see through that. But these are controls, and these are sums. So this is saying sum everything above in the account manager section, sum all of the amount paid, sum all of the current due. In the page footer, you're going to add a page number, and this is actually a page of how many pages, and you're going to put the date control. And then down in the report footer, you're going to make a label for grand totals, and then you're going to add up the grand totals for all account managers, so it'll do the entire report. So let's look at that. So for this first manager, here these are the calculated, the sum fields, and here these are the calculated discounts. And you can look at this. So basically there's no discount right here. There's a discount right here of $155 because this person, Avondale Community Bank, has paid over $20,000, so they get the fullest discount. This Midwest has paid over $20,000, they get the fullest discount. But Tri-County Waste Disposal has not paid over $20,000, they get only the 2% discount. Of course, there's no discount here because there's no current due. This is a new customer. And then the subtotal is just for this manager. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom of the report, you see each manager has a section like that. But the grand total will add up all of the amounts paid and the current due amounts for each of the managers, for all of the managers. And then down here we have, in the footer, we have the page number and we have the date. Okay, make sure you review those videos. I'm not going to change them. All right, let's take a look at the first lab. Enable the content, and you've added a new table here called open orders, and it's just the number of orders that are open, and you're going to import that from a text file, I believe. You're also going to create a query here, and it's going to serve as the basis for the sub-report. We're going to close these forms for the sub-report, the open orders sub-report. So, and you're also going to create a discount report here. So let's first look at the master list, sales rep master list. So it looks a little similar. There's a background here, but there a dark background here for the title, but we did do the spacing, the kerning. The labels up at the top are bolded, but a different, like a charcoal, and then the controls are all bolded and in black ink. The labels down in this section are italics, and the controls are here. I see something that needs to be fixed. I'm going to fix it. Do you see where that customer name is cut off a little bit? Postal code is cut off a little bit, and I see a typo in total amount, and these are cut off. I'm going to go and fix those right quick. Let me do that now while you're watching, because I want to show you how easily you can make these changes. Let me just undo that. I moved it. Alright, so I'm going to bring this out a little bit so I can read it. And postal code was not fully. And products needed was cut off a little bit. I'm going to bring it out. Amount paid, I'm going to bring it out a little bit. And you only do this one, and this is a typo, y'all. I didn't do this on purpose. So I had an H in there. I don't know what I was doing when I typed that, but it wasn't right. All right, and so now that's finished, and I'm going to save those changes, and let's look at the difference. Now these are readable, and it wasn't hard. It's just a matter of looking as you're designing to see how things look. You want to make sure that you keep in mind that the user needs to be able to approach this and easily update data or input data without any kind of problem. And here's the open orders sub report. And these are grouped by sales rep number and sorted by customer number. So the AA, of course, comes before the LH. But you see, when I made the change in the sales rep control area, it affected each one. So you just make it in that one area, and it affects each one. This is the power of this report. As I said many times, for this class, you only have a few pieces of data, but in real life, you could be dealing with hundreds of thousands, even millions of pieces of data. I don't know. I hate to keep picking on Duke Energy, but I don't know how many customers they have, but it's got to be millions. So I would guess. I don't know. But anyway, so that's what this looks like. Nothing. And you're going to create a calculated field here too. Let's go back and look at that design view. So here's a calculated field here. You're going to create a sum that adds the amount paid and the balance due there. And if you look at that, that's what you see. Oh, something's wrong with that. Played with it, but let me show you what was wrong with it. It's doing when I said sum, it's summing all of them. So I just need to take sum out and take out the closing parentheses. And now let's view that and see if it does. Yeah, that's right. It's not lined up right. Let me go ahead and change the alignment. This should be left aligned and highlighted. And I don't want this one. I just want this one. So I just want to select the little square box up here. I think I probably did it. And then I'm going to move it, just the label back over so it's in alignment with the other labels. Let's see what that looks like. That's better. And now it's properly lined up. And that will be consistent all the way down. Now the totals are right. I'm glad that happened so that I was able to walk you through some of the potential pitfalls. So that worked out real well. I know some of you probably think I did it on purpose. I did not. Alright, so, let me open that up again. So here's the sub report, and here's what it looks like. It's pretty simple. It'll be built off of the query. And then the discount report, it's going to, the other one was reflecting the current due. This one is reflecting the actual discount. And so the calculation will be different. Let's take a look at it. it's grouped by sales rep number and ordered by customer number, just as the other one is. It'll be the first step you make whenever you begin building these in design view. But let's take a look at the design view so we can look at the calculation. It's an if statement. I'm going to open the property sheet and then we're going to look at it. And it says if the amount paid is greater than $2,000, then the balance due, then multiply the balance due times 0.02 or 2%. If not, then multiply the balance due by 1%. So that gives a 98% discount. I mean a 98% balance due or a 99%. But we're not showing the balance due on this report. We're showing the actual discount figure, which is why it's that way. And you can see once you when you group them, you create this sales rep number header and a sales rep number footer. For each sales rep, there will be it'll sum all of their accounts for the amount due and the amount paid and the balance due, and then the report footer will show the sums for all of them. So let's take a look at that. Excuse me. My apologies. We are back to the customer discount report, and you can see it's organized by the sales rep number and grouped by the sales rep number and sorted by the customer number. And as I said, it actually shows the discount. It shows the subtotal for each sales rep and then a grand total at the bottom. And that's going to be it for this. Just like the Pratt last, there's not a lot generated there. So let's take a look at the next one. It's Lab 2, SciTech Sundries. Today is my birthday. I have a lot of people texting and calling me because they're happy. Okay, so we're going to be bringing a reorder table, and it is driven, and you're going to create a query here as well, but you're going to bring in a reorder table using a text file. And you know, I didn't do in the last one, but let's take a look at the relationships there. And you see it has two primary keys, and we established the one-to-many. Again, you always make the one only a table that has one key, one primary key. This would never, a table with two primary keys would never be the one-to-many because there's more than one primary key. Okay, so make sure you do those relationships, otherwise it will not work. You have to do the relationships before you do any of the work. After you bring in the table, do the establish the relationships. Have any problem, you call me. Okay, and you're going to create a query called vendors and items. That's going to tie in and create a something for your sub-report. Let's see. So let's take a look at the vendor master list. And it has some conditional formatting in it. Right here on hand, I believe if it's lower than 10 on hand, then you use a red bold font to get the attention of the reader. This is grouped by vendor and then organized or sorted by the item number. And we don't have any calculations in this one. We just have a sub report. Let's just look at the design view. Yeah, and this sub report we named on order, but it's items on order. It's a sub report. It's the actual name of the sub report. Let me close this property sheet, and that's it. There's nothing in the footer. There's no calculation. We're just showing a list of the vendors and each separate item number. So let's look at that again. And that's all there is to it. And you see each vendor is separated by, alright, it's banded. So this one has a white background, this one, but this one, the next vendor has a blue background, and then the next one will have a white background. That's a bandit system. So and the items, let's close this and look at the items on order. It's just these will be generated by those will be generated by this will be generated by the query that you create, and you use that query to create your sub report. So, and by the time we get to the last one, you'll be so impressed with yourself, because you'll be able to do it without any problem. I promise you. And you're going to be adding 2 tables here, seminar and seminar offerings. So let's look at the relationships there. So you have your, let me open this up, spread this out. Come on, arrow. It doesn't want to behave. Let me just pull it down this way. Okay, so we can read everything. And then this one I'm going to make a little bit so we can read everything there. So these are your original tables, your marketing analyst, the one to many to the client. And then this table that we added has 2 keys, so of course it has to be the many table. So we connect it by the client number. And then this seminar table, I don't know why I have these all different. You know, I got a little, you guys already know I have a little OCD, so I don't know why I have these all spaced out so differently. But the seminar offerings and the seminar table are connected by the seminar code. And let me save that relationship panel, so the expanded view, so I can see everything. Everything's, and I always go back to look at it to make sure it saved it, and it did. Alright, so make sure again, once you bring in the tables and get the data in, that you go in and establish relationships. If these relationships don't establish, it'll tell you why. Don't panic. It'll say this is not working because. Pay attention to what it says. It's in plain English, and it usually puts things in the order of where they need repairs. Alright, let's open this up so we can see this a little bit. You're going to do a query here. Actually, no, that was in the last one. Let's see. Oh, you're going to do a query here. Seminar offerings and seminars. And we're not going to do any forms, but we're going to do this master report, marketing analyst master report. And we have the expanded title here. We have a total amount field here. It's just like the one we did in the one I corrected in the Pratt last, I think it was. Now don't panic if you don't see anything here. It could be that there's not a sub report for this particular client. So it scares students when they've done a sub report and they don't see anything here. Just keep scrolling, because it could be that that data just doesn't apply for that customer at that time, that client at that time. And that's all there is to it. I'll look at the design view, but it's pretty much just like the others. There's the formula there. There's the sub report. There's no page footer here. We didn't do a date, and no conditional formatting here. Pretty straightforward. Let's look at the and there's no discount report. This is the sub report, seminar offerings by client, and that's it. Okay, I think that's it for I think that's it for this module. We'll be ready to move on to module 7.